goes forever, but let's jump over to it. Changing the scene. I could have maxed up this screen for you first, but I chose not to, so you could live in the light one more time. As the light extends to game number 3 of G2 versus Origen. I forgot again just how loud Vedius, Medic, and everyone else are. Shut the hell up, Vedius. No, you can be a little bit louder than that. There we go. Wait, no. Can I make Vedius quieter? Vedius, please, shush. Ender, you're fine, but Vedius, no. I'm trying to like move my mouse 0.01 micromillimeters, and it's not working that well. But here we go. So, G2 staying on blue side. I'm of the belief, by the way, guys, that I think blue side is the way to go right now. I feel like blue side duos of picks, and this is in a series where we don't even have Sonatarek and other things. I think blue side is actually really, really strong. Can you actually hear them talk like that? Ask 05. No. I just like having the chatter around. I don't think a quiet VOD helps, and when everyone shouts, I think it's cool to have in the background. But, so the bans, the Galio ban remains, which makes you think that Tahm Kench will be repeated, and as I noted, I wasn't a fan of Tahm. So at this, with Rise banned, I think Rek'Sai is by far the first pick here, because I don't think Kallista's first roundable in EU. So, I did watch this game, so I'm aware of how it goes, but I'm trying to flow on why things go the way they go. And then Origen are probably thinking, okay, our strategy only gets revealed in the second round. We want another duo of picks that doesn't reveal anything, so it's not going to be Galio Jarvan because Galio is banned. Let's just go Lissandra Jarvan again. And I think with where Lissandra was in kind of the zeitgeist 3 weeks ago, this makes perfect sense because Lissandra was a first pick, first ban champion. But Sandra's starting to fall away a little bit as other champions rise in priority. And so, yes, I think it's fine to return this, but if you're a G2, I think you definitely return to Zyra Khan. I had Cloud Templar come up to me and ask, what do you think about Zyra Khan? I'm like, I think Zyra Khan's really strong right now after all the buffs. And we see a lot of those champions overseas. And he's like, yeah, but what about only Rakan? Because I think you get more Rakan than you get Zyra Khan around the world. And I'm just a big believer in Zyra Khan as a duo being a good way to go. I think it's a duo lane that's been buffed directly and indirectly recently. Zyra had Essence Reaver buffed and a direct buff. Rakan had a direct buff. And it was always, even through all those nerfs, okay to run without necessarily winning many lanes. Now it wins a lot of lanes, especially if the enemy is going to stick with Tahm Kench. So this was the first pick I wouldn't return to, was specifically the Tahm Kench. But I do like the ban they follow it up with, because they identify we can't give G2 double solo flexes because we can't beat them. And I think that's the right read. So the Aurelia ban takes away like a god tier champion for Wonder and Caps to flex, and you start to run out of some of those really powerful duos of picks. So we zoom forward. I keep getting trolled. I in my head, the 3 bans should be on the right, and the Akali Aurelia should be next to the scoreboard. So you have both of the 2 picks and then the 3 bans on the opposite sides, but that's not how it is in EU, so I get confused. Sorry about that. Aurelia Akali, so they're definitely addressing flex picks like we talked about. The Jace ban, and now G2, they can either show their AD carry or cement their second pick. Because they're, Origen, can either show their AD carry or cement their second pick. If they could play more of these sort of picks, like if they could pick Akali here, then you can hide AD carry and you hide showing what your strat is about. And I would really, really prefer that. Because I want to hide that this is going to be a hyper carry comp or if it's going to be a Varus comp. Because those are so different and they play out so differently that there's a lot of value in not showing AD carry in this draft after reverting everything you just played. Because let's say you pick top lane here, then suddenly it's like, all right, well, we don't want to lose to Varus Tahm Kench, but you can't draft a comp that works equally good against Varus Tahm Kench and Jinx Tahm Kench. They're so different. But because it's G2, from an Origin perspective, you're like, okay, we really can't lose these lanes. We need to pick something. We need a counter pick for the top lane. And Alfari is a player who I know I would always think of as more of a role player, and I was always told that internally he is a carry player and that plays carry matchups. So if you really believe that, then I think you can take that gambit. And so they show Jinx, and they show that this is going to be so different. This is not a timings comp in terms of game number 1, where you're about playing through mid-prio attacking and getting a Rift Herald and taking down outer turrets and rotating around. This is now, these champions can control space, and you can devour Tahm Kench rather than take mid-tower and rotate up top lane. So that's a big difference. And now G2 get 2 picks to influence what is going to be a 4-1 comp or a 5-man mid comp. It can't be anything else. So in my head, if you're going to make that change, pick it last. But never mind. On to G2. They can take Corki flex in this case and just send it against Lissandra, even if Lissandra goes top. So that's another thing that G2 do well. Whether Caps goes top with it, whether Wonder, you just know he can play it. These guys just know this. Yeah, they have the same champ pool basically, so I think that's fine. And now you're probably blind picking top in most cases, right? So I'm a big fan of GP here, and that might be a surprise to people after how the series has gone so far. But consider what Origen's comp is. Origen's comp is Patrick gets his items, and they try to death ball around him. They know Lissandra's going to be outmatched by someone. It ends up being Corki. So their comp is 4-1 at best, 5-man death ball at worst. Kind of reminiscent of the draft in game number 3 of C9 versus TSM, where I didn't like the Zillion Tahm Kench, the Zillion Jarvan that was going on in that game, and yet they got a Baron, and they could make it all about the Jinx and Zillion. However, what happens way before Barons and things come in? Well, that comp was losing until they got a Baron. And in the draft, which is even before the action happens, GP top attacks bot lane well. GP top allows them to just ult bot lane, and Zyra Khan versus Jinx Tahm Kench is a straight-up winning lane for Zyra Khan. They'll have GP ult, they'll have Caps who can try to get there quickly. They also have the jungling skirmish advantage in the Rek'Sai. I think this is a good time to blind GP and not make it, you've run out of flex champions because Aurelia Kali is kind of the dregs of the top mid lane flex. Realistically, once you went Corki, that's going in Lissandra's lane. So I like drafting the GP and just being able to ult bot. I think that's actually a really good call in terms of a draft, because if Jinx falls behind, remember, Jinx 2v2, going to lose out on CS to Zyra Khan, because Zyra Khan has priority, and Rek'Sai is the strongest skirmishing jungler. And then if you get kills on Jinx, or put Jinx further behind, then the team comp doesn't do anything, because they need Jinx to hit the damage items. You hit a team fight, there's a chance the barrels can zone Jinx, and as we mentioned, you get some Silver Serpents into the GPO, that will also zone Jinx. So I actually think this is a good time to pick Jinx. Jinx, to me, in Europe, is overpicked a bit, but I like it when you see the enemy and you say, this enemy team is Jinx. Jinx focused. Ult bot lane is a really big advantage, so I'm a fan of Wanda going for the GP blind pick this time. I'm a GP sometimes man. That's basically what I'm trying to say as a caster. So closing out the draft here. So we were waiting to see what is the pick into GP going to be. And the pick into GP, very surprisingly, is Swain. Now, Swain is actually one of the easiest people for GP blind to deal with. You can take Grasp and just try to sustain from range. You can Orange out of his CC. You can play bot and know that you're going to have some semblance of lane control. And it's a pick that helps their team fight more, right? Because now you have Lissandra controlling space and Swain controlling space. And then Jinx can pop off. But it doesn't address the fact that GP can ult bot, and it actually doesn't help their lanes. So it actually feels almost like a self-counter pick. Like, this is a really, really weird spot. So people might ask, okay, what would you like to see against GP? You could pick Vladimir. And Vladimir beats GP in lane, and also is often much better in a team fight. Yes, the GP ult situation, you can get some advantages, but Vladimir dunks GP at almost every point in the game. We had Ignite Vladimir in this matchup before in the LCK last year. You can go Kennen, and Kennen pressures GP into at least buying a second item, Sterix Gauge, and also has some solo kill times against GP. We also know that Origen have a great Kennen play. Alfari is a great Kennen, and he had it banned in game number 2, but they don't pick it up yet. So the Swain to me is very, very greedy. It's better team fight, but nothing else. It doesn't help their side lanes more. You can Olaf top, says John Fisa. Absolutely, Olaf top is really good against GP. Even Gnar in this spot, to me, pressures GP harder and at least can be similar to a Swain in a team fight. I thought this was a really, really, really peculiar time to go Swain. And it kind of tells you that this Gambit, that Alfari wouldn't have a pick that could actually slam GP, was correct in the end. Fiora for Silent, I'm not as big a fan of the Fiora. I actually think that GP can like kind of ignore Fiora for a lot of the game before he starts dying. So I'm really not a fan of this. Like, on red side, it feels like G2 won pick bad on blue side a lot. Why not Urgot top in this game? I think getting value out of Urgot is hard because you can't kill GP. He just oranges out of your ult. And then, yes, if you get to a team fight 4 items, you can be really strong. But I think it's a similar level. I would prefer it over Swain, but I don't think it's that much better in this case. But I was very underwhelmed by the Swain, for sure. Friend of the LCK broadcast, Lore, and friend of the LCK broadcast, good old Ocelot. I'm going to leave it here because Ocelot looks very flattering and very pretty in this photo. So I must admit, full Kappa Pride for Ocelot. Ocelot did announce that that G2 are supporting Griffin for the final. I believe he met with the Griffin owner. So I guess the G2 Griffin synergy is there. Laura is someone who came over to Korea and I got to meet, and she's really big LCK fan, really big Mata fan. She's a Mata fan and a KT fan, but I think she's trying to be a KT fan because that's how European fandom is. You don't change teams. But she definitely doesn't want to become an SKT fan. So Laura's a gem for sure. So we'll zoom through this. This was actually a really funny interview. But we get a Corgi. We get game number 3 of G2 versus Origen. And okay, so let's talk about the level 1 here. It's the most interesting thing in this game. So Origen lost game 2 from being too overeager in trying to get the Rift Herald, and so showed that they were definitely, you know, mentally exhausted, let's say, at least in game number 2 after the game 1 loss. So G2, again in their first best of series of the season, have a chance to tilt them again. And this is just so well done in terms of vision here, because Wonder is able to keep Alfari interested. The Scar Award isn't a failure. Shout out to Scara, who hosted us earlier today, but also to Mickey for nailing the ward. And that means he's smart enough to come in with the Grand Entrance and not be spotted. And then Wonder wants to keep him interested and not to fully disengage. It's so beautifully done as a level 1. And as Alfari, you're just... you're so tilted by the end. Because you either flash early there, or you don't flash at all, and he flashes late and dies. Just wrecked. Oh, we should pause here. Who's this guy? Who's this guy? He seems alright. More I watch and review Wonder, the more convinced I get that he might be the best Western League of Legends player. Hashtag LEC. This guy knows something. This Papa guy, PapaSmithy, I think his name is. PapaSmithy, maybe, if he's on an analyst desk with Mithy. He seems alright, you know? I'm okay with this. By the way, it was very overwhelming being in chat when this happened, because there was literally a chain of love hearts sent my way at PapaSmithy Love Heart for like 4 minutes. That was all that was spammed in chat. And that's mostly because chat just loves to spam things that to get noticed, but damn. It was a very humbling moment for sure. But now top lane Swain has to enter lane against GP with no flash. And like, that's a sentence where I can't even say it without feeling sad. I feel like I'm Eeyore as I say the sentence. The top lane Swain that didn't really self-counterpick and picked for team fights has to lose trades against a GP. You know, like, that's actually what happened in this game. Like, that's so sad. But that's what happened at the level 1. It's because, like, can people confirm that, you know, I watched LEC last year. Well, LCS, I should say, EULCS. And I watched, you know, some Misfits games. And I saw some pop-offs from Hansama. You know, his Draven's really good. I don't remember Mickey being just a complete god. Like, Mickey played so well this series. He's so good. I remember Mickey not being able to... Like, Mickey and Hansama, in my memory, would win lane, but seemed to have very little idea as a duo and how to win game. But Mickey has been so creative and on point when I've watched him this year. Like, I guess Mickey's communication has gone up a whole nother level, because from what I understand, those guys didn't talk much. And then... Oh, there's the spoiler. I won't spoil, but there is a spoiler for the Challengers final. But, yeah, like, Mickey as a player, because remember, he's laning with Perks, who's very talkative, but Mickey will have to hold up his side of the bargain because he needs to be able to at least, you know, have an opinion on bot lane managers that theoretically he should be informed on. I think Perks is definitely the one who would have a lot of opinion on how the game should be played, but Mickey should have a lot of opinion on how the lane should be played at least, right? Yeah. He's been very, very impressive in this season. And just plays like that and how multi-layered there are really cool to see. Now, there's a cost. They don't get control of the 2v2 like they did in game number 1, so actually Perks and Mickey will be in lane late. So Jinx actually gets experience advantage, which you should almost never get as Jinx Tahm Kench versus Zyra Khan. But, I mean, the reverse kind of benefit of Wonder having a flash advantage in the Swain lane is like unbelievably bonus to the advantage of G2. I feel like I really want to make Vedius shut up just a little bit more. That's no. Please, Vedius, just calm down. Calm down, Vedi. Vedi, please. That's better. He's a little bit quieter. So this lane should be super comfort for Wonder. He didn't go Klepto Greed. He went the Grasp, and he has a flash advantage. This is a free lane on the top side. It's too hard to get through him. He even didn't go Stopwatch. It's actually pretty bold on GP. Whenever I don't see Stopwatch in a utility tree, I'm always a little bit surprised. Yeah, GP can push up. GP has priority in top. Zyra Khan, because they entered lane late, don't have priority, but things will change in the bot lane as time goes on. And mid lane is a really, really interesting one. I really like this Lissandra versus Corki matchup that we're seeing more of. Because the way you win this lane as Lissandra is that you force Caps to back pre-8 minutes, and you get a teleport roam to bot lane. The reason 8 minutes is relevant is because you get the package at level 8. Caps either wants to take a 3-minute back timer and then get back into lane. So shove up with jungler and then back before Lissandra is able to shop and go bot lane with a lost chapter. Or he wants to take an 8-minute back timer. That's how it goes with Corki Lissandra, because if you just sit in lane as Lissandra against Corki, we all know how it goes. Eventually, Corki's items just do way more than your items can do. But early game, you have a shove window pre-9 minutes, pre-level 9 especially, and then your TP roam obviously is way better than Corki's, and Corki can't follow and can't get back to mid lane to punish a roam hard enough till he has package. So there's actually a lot going on in this matchup pre-8 minutes, and then it's just Corki winning. So it's really cool to see this particular matchup. And Caps looking for recall timings is something I love to do, because he can sometimes be quite greedy with them. He's sometimes creative with them. Like, Caps either recalls now, or he won't be able to recall till 8 minutes most likely. Good play from Cold. Cold actually, instead of shopping, comes for counter gank. And the only information he has Is there any information here? He actually never knows where Rek'Sai is at. I don't believe Rek'Sai ever reveals, but this is actually really not greedy play. What you do here as Cold is you full clear, you know your top laner doesn't have flash for 2 more minutes, and you go topside and recall in range of a counter gank. That's a really standard jungle play. You don't always see it, but this is another good jungle pathing from Cold, who, as we know, has outpathed the Jankos consistently in the early game of this series. So, good pathing here. He walks in, you either recall on this brush and counter gank, and he's able to counter gank. You know, a terrible scenario for mid lane. Typically, Caps is not interested in looking for recall times. He electrocute Corki. That's a new one. I guess it's fine. Bit of battle warning from Jankos. If he knows where Cold is, like, Nuke Duck can't kill Corki. Corki has to be, like, sub 250 health for, like, Nuke Duck to realistically be able to kill him. Because he kind of has to flash WQ him and then maybe snipe him with the back end of the E. He doesn't have Ignite. He has no more bursts. So the windows here to actually kill the Corki are pretty minimal. So that's why you can be greedy. But we're getting to the point where Nuke Duck got a shot bleed. And Caps is like, okay, I don't want to be roamed on. You could back here, but they actually have no bot side control, you'll notice. So you'll notice that Caps is going to cancel his back and stay because they don't have bot side control and they're very afraid of Lissandra roaming bot lane. So that's why this second steal looks greedy, but actually the first back cancel was greedy. This back cancel is actually trying to do a number for his team. I'm watching this play mostly to watch the Corgi. Like, it sucks laning with no blue buff and no, like, corrupting potion charges, but it's actually correct for Caps to keep Lissandra in lane for 8 minutes, and it's on the Lissandra to find enough space to roam out. So even Cold walking up like this, Cold's walking up because he knows the Corki is kind of a dead duck in mid lane. He can only last hit with auto attack and run out of mana. But all this play is doing is extending the time at which Corki can keep Lissandra in lane. Lissandra backs away again. Caps' primary objective now is, I cannot back till 8 minutes comes. That's what happens here. Dead duck. I didn't even appreciate that. It was actually pretty on point. Ugh. Look at this trade. And this is why I don't like Swain into GP. That's so much damage. How much damage? Is this 320 damage? He has 1, 2, 3. He has 520 health. 200 damage. And this is the lane that was the counter pick. I was very skeptical of the counter pick value, and we're seeing that, yeah, this matchup kind of sucks. So Caps, just natural mana regen, amusingly, getting him topped up. Importantly, Nuke Duck's going to go second back timing before Corki goes for his first back, but the cost is minimal here. That's a win to Corki. To go CS for CS and keep Nuke Duck cooped up for this long is actually Corki winning the lane, which I think some people would miss, but we've seen some really good roam timings from Lissandra's on Corki players in the LCK, and it's cool to see this play. And now, Jankos is actually being a bit greedy. He should probably stay around mid lane because we're at 7 minutes 30 and we're close to that back timing. And now he just, yeah, he's going to be a human ward till 8 minutes, and you got to give up something. Typical mid laner gives up Jankos guaranteeing his wolf camp, but Jankos gets it anyway, and there's the back timing. And suddenly, you see the speed and you just can note the time, right? Let's time the Corgi. Let's do a Corgi race. The Corgi doesn't have, picks up the good old package, which takes about, what, 1 second? And then from 8:03 to getting back to mid lane is 8 seconds. For context, it takes 3 seconds to teleport onto someone, and then you have to be involved in a fight, and then you have to walk back mid lane. Or there's a roam timing. You can't walk down with your jungler and impact bot lane without getting counter ganked by Corki if he has package. But if he doesn't have package, he has to slowly get to mid lane and then push without a lot of items. Like, it takes a long time. So there's a very big difference when it comes to the amount of time with and without package. And you have to go cleanse against Lissandra. You can't go TP corking against Lissandra. Otherwise, you negate the laning matchup because you can actually die if you go that way. So it's very much about package timings in the Lissandra matchup. And yes, that does sound funny. And then every item purchased from here is better and better for Caps. Did he go Electrocute? Actually, we don't. Does anyone know if he went Emax? So Emax is actually cropping up more and more recently. Is Emax Corki just to get the Electrocute trades off? I'm going to assume he did if he went Electrocute. Let's see how this play started. So there's actually a CS lead in bot lane for Jinx that is a little bit surprising, but a lot of the action has been topside, as we know. The problem is now we can start the GP plays. So the moment Devour goes down and the ult hits, Cannon Barrage is there to help guarantee kills bot side. And Caps is roaming and actually is able to roam very strongly now. That is Corki, you know, post Sheen, post most of Phage. That's why you see hard action like this happening, but G2 just outplay it. So let's watch this play. Nukeduck starts with a huge health lead, but his Aftershock wears off. So he uses W to keep Corki in place as Tahm Kench is coming in with the animation. But if you notice, Aftershock wears off before Mithy can really do much, and it's 2v3. So it's Mithy teleporting into a disadvantage. Why do they make this play? So Origen have no vision control bot side. Oh, look at G2's vision. It's awesome. They have 4 control wards. One in the river brush, one in the brush behind that, the tri-brush, the pixel brush, and also the entrance. G2 know everything. G2 got the script on this bot lane play in this particular case. We're seeing people saying that he actually went Qmax anyway. Okay, there's actually some matchups where I really like Emax Corki, specifically against Sylas. Because Sylas pushes in Corki by Eing into the wave and then just spamming his spells. If you go Emax Corki, it doesn't matter the fact that he uses E to get a shield, because if you go Qmax Corki against Sylas, you Phosphorus Bomb the shield and actually don't win the damage trade or push. But if you go Emax Corki, you shred the Sylas while he's pushing, and then your auto attacks as he leaves is with full penetration from the extra armor magic resist shred. But to this particular play, I guess starts off, and it's kind of understandable. It's a turret dive. OG try to turn around. They get 1 kill onto Yankos. But the further play here from Nukeduck, instead of disengaging the play, is to full hard engage with only Tahm Kench, no one else who can respond, and they lose 2 further kills. This is really weird play from Nukeduck. I think this is definitely the 0-2 play, because they kill Yankos, you go the long way, and you're done with this. Instead, Nukeduck disregards they have no river control and a 400 health Tahm Kench to try to back up, and they give over 2 more kills. Like, to me, this is a classic best of 5 issue. Like, that's actually a real sign of tilt in a game. Like, I never see Nukeduck making plays like that. He's usually really good on the map. But to hold your ult there and then... you just consider when Nukeduck's involved. Like, Nukeduck chases in. He could ult Caps early just to try to slow him down. He probably still loses his mid laner. But that was a really, really curious decision from like a super veteran member of the G2 lineup. And then we just came out of the replay to see more action. OG trying to make another play. So, ironically, you know, the original point we had on Origen versus G2 is that Origen, a high combined kills per minute team. That means they have a lot of kills and a lot of deaths. There's a lot of kills for both teams in the early game. That means they hit their item spikes earlier, because there's more gold in a G2 game because a lot of people are dying. Meanwhile, Origen is the slowest combined kills per minute team. They hit their item spikes later, but more predictably. So, amusingly, this being the most bloody game where we have 7 kills in 10 minutes, or, you know, 0.7, actually helps G2 more than it helps Origen in some ways, because Corki's way ahead of schedule. Sork Boots half of Trinity Force pre-10 minutes is actually a huge amount of power. And the GP got a kill involvement, never leaving lane. So, actually, the scaling is coming in earlier. And Origen, while they're sharing in some gold in the early game, they're not hitting core items on Lissandra early enough to actually just start that small, narrow time where Lissandra can just roll around the map and get picks. So the lane assignment here is actually really awkward. They're putting Jinx, Tahm Kench mid lane against Corki to 2v1 the Corki and not have Lissandra versus Corki for a time. But it's Jinx, Tahm Kench with no river control at all, trying to guarantee Jinx some farm. And meanwhile, it's Lissandra bot lane at her strongest point and not being able to impact the map. So it almost feels like you're losing in two ways and not gaining in any as Origen, which is definitely not ideal. Yeah, Caps is super farmed and fed at this point. And Mickey can just freely roam through the river because that's G2's river. They own this bot lane river the entire game. They don't have all the control wards there, but they might as well still have them there. Get onto Nuke Duck. Not going to kill him, but, you know, Perks is not losing any CS in the bot lane. Jinx is getting some items in mid, but Jinx is a very expensive AD carry. Compared to Vayne, like a similar kind of champion in your mind, you know, Vayne is online at 2 items, and Jinx is not online till 3 most of the time. So Jinx fulfills the hyper carry idea that Vayne really doesn't fit into the archetype of anymore. And so because of that, your rotation downplays Lissandra, upscales Jinx, arguably, maybe gets her items more reliably. But around the Jinx, you know, we talked about how Origen can really only 5v5 teamfight, especially with the Swain last pick. Like, GP's winning, Corki's winning, and those champions alone can just change how this game plays. So it's really, really not ideal for Origen. And then the turret plays are just going to rain in Ching. Like, they've given up. They've just realized that, and they've sent Lissandra mid lane, but it's a defensive rotation when they don't have map control, so they've lost the entire bot lane turret. So it's going to be a turret palooza for G2 in this game. Okay, so Origen are trying to get a Rift Herald. This is never going to be a gold Rift Herald. It's only going to be an outnumbered, let's get an objective somewhere. And it's not game 2 where they have to get Rift Herald. This is much more of a luxury Rift Herald from them. If you wonder why Caps is baiting this hard into 4 members with no backup, this is why. If you notice, above Corki's head, you are unstoppable during package, during the special delivery mechanism. You are not unstoppable, of course, during the Valkyrie, but you will never be crowd controlled as Corki if you're ready to W, because you always move a fixed maximum distance with the special delivery, you know, from the package, the passive of Corki, and it overrides CC. So that's why you can afford to poke for this long and not have any worries about your life. And then at this point, when it's taken this long, you can 5v4 in this scenario. And you've gotten Wander's Flash, so that was a nice play top side. So G2 have to be a bit careful here. But Caps is successful almost alone in stopping the Rift Herald take. Rift Herald, of course, is now post 14 minutes. And then look at how this all went. Watch what happened in the play. So Caps' play, he walks up 1v4 just to delay Rift Herald. He continues to poke around Rift Herald. The moment he's confident the Rift Herald won't be happening, and the best way to do that is to poke out Nuke Duck. He sees Nuke Duck go over the wall. What does he do? Hey, there's no one to defend mid lane. They get inside track into mid lane from Caps having a big package play. And yes, the truest sense of the big package play around the Rift Herald. They get teleport just to try to stop it. The turret doesn't go down here, but once again, Origen try to make a move on the map, but G2 make a much more proactive move that gets them way ahead. Turret played 6-3, no surprise. And actually only 2 of the turret plates were taken for gold on the side of Origen there, because they only had 320 gold. Caps actually failed his Valkyrie here. He was not Valkyrieing there. This is a fail Valkyrie. Watch. Whoops. Little corgi hop. Didn't mean to do that. That was a mistake. Doesn't matter though. Gold lead is actually really big already in game number 3. Then you just poke around, and you have to outnumber his Origen at every moment, because every member of G2, like, look at the spikes. Like, if you're wondering how G2 can be so bold in their positioning, have a look at the items done. Trinity Force versus Rod of Ages. So power now, and the big one power spike compared to items later. Warrior Enchant and Ruby Crystal Rek'Sai versus Cinderhulk Jarvan. So Cinderhulk Jarvan's only there as a facilitator for the team. Trinity Force Sork Shoes compared to Protobelt. And Lissandra's not even on the screen. She's dealing with the Xayah. Xayah has an item lead, huge item lead in terms of power early over the Jinx, because of course as the Essence Reaver was buffed, the Zeal item's already done compared to, you know, a bit of Zeal item and Infinity Edge for Jinx. Like, all the power is now for G2, and they scale harder where the power already is disproportionately on G2's side. So it's a win more scenario. And all Origen can do is outnumber and try to get there. Rek'Sai's 32 CS up, and I guess 2 level advantage, probably more like 1.5 levels, but Cold's kind of spent all the game trying to put out fires around the map, trying to make things happen. The roam timings never happen, and now you just get awkward lane assignments, you get huge item leads. Like, this is a real disaster for Origen, because G2 wield this gold lead very well now because they've finished Trinity Forces, which are big power spikes, and they outscale. So it's another... They're doing better now, and they'll go on to do better later. One of my favorite words to say today. Once again, it's Tahm Kench from behind. I would have loved to see a Morgana or Mithy to fight for lane, but I didn't like the first Tahm Kench player. Now they try a different type of Tahm Kench comp, but it falls into the same problem that this is not the OP Tahm Kench you remember in the Ashe Tahm Kench games that Core JJ loved to play, where you're just rotating around and this guy's got map hacks and you can't kill the AD carry next to him. Like, they don't get value out of this draft from Origen until they 5v5 at items they might never get. And that's where I feel like too much was invested. Like, the map control is nothing. They have to move as a 4 just to get vision anywhere. So it means everywhere they're not grouped as, which in this case is the river, literally all they can do is control this entrance to the river. They have no control over their red side jungle, arguably their blue side jungle, but it's maybe implied by how close they are to it. Definitely not the enemy side of the jungle. Like, they really control little. And in cases like that, you got a true global to ult the wave bot lane, and not even Swain pushing. Like, Swain even loses the push trade during this play. They never lose the bot lane turret. Like, the yes and Ocean Drake is taken, but I think G2 just laugh at that one. Even RNG's not on OG's side on this particular play. So much insane map control here. They can jam the Rift Herald and get the turret, because Corki can walk up. No one from Origen can, you know, eat this damage. What does Mithy do? Mithy walks from mid lane and face checks Rek'Sai, I guess. They definitely don't control their Raptor. They definitely don't control the Raptor camp, as we were confirming. Wait, I forgot this. The Q snipe comes in, and then Big Balls Yankos gets a double kill. He even gets out. Like, this is... You never make this play if you're not 2-0 up and this game hasn't gone this way, but that's how kind of a game it is. Like, that is the wrong play almost every time, but in this game it's fine. Super alpha ulti, as chat's saying. But, yeah. And now, you know, you look at Origen, and if you're an Origen fan, you want to ask me the question of, well, how do Origen fight back? Like, they don't at this point in the game. They need 2 more items on their AD carry. They need, like, a complete Zonias on the Swain. Lissandra doesn't have any threat behind, no Luden's complete. Like, they just don't do enough damage, even to kill a pretty squishy frontline like G2's. So G2 needs to make a mistake. It's kind of what you're thinking as Origen. They really do need to make a mistake. But summoners are up. You know, Flash has gotten out of perks, which is called getting something out of nothing. But it's kind of the maximum they're going to get. Caps goes for the Bless RNG duo. My favorite Corki build. Old Trinity Force. Old Infinity Edge Trinity Force Sorcerer's Shoes for if I high roll, you're dead. 1000 damage crit Triforce proc. Look how this fight starts. It starts because they have a spotting ward. They see Alfari walk up. The spotting ward is all they have to begin this play, but they just start Baron purely to fight. go back. Watch how this play happens. It's purely just, they don't have any spotting wards. Caps sees Mithy and knows how strong he is. And remember, they stopped a Rift Herald in this game from Caps walking up to Rift Herald, knowing that he could just get out with the special delivery, and then from there almost got a mid lane tower from him. And they have a similar read in this fight, where Caps knows how strong he is, and wielding that strength, you know, with the package to be able to frontline, knowing how strong he is and how weak the enemy is definitely a sign of a great player. I think great players know more than just their champion and the lane matchup. They also understand game state and how to play from there. So really nicely done from Caps. The sort of false bravado 2 years ago that's now much more controlled aggression from him. The Baron here is pretty bold, to be honest, because they're all pretty squishy. So starting the Baron without any picks is not something G2 can do. They can do a lot of things, but in a game like this, they're gods of damage, but they're not actually gods of tankiness. So you can't actually tank Baron and turn off it. That's not something G2 can do. So the Baron start is over-forcing, but the original call was obviously good. I feel like there's gank brushing Mithy all the time. Yeah, Mithy looks to walk into an area that they haven't contested for wards in a while and just straight up dies. Like, Mithy can't solo ward this game. It's not a good... When you're 7,000 gold behind, obviously they don't know the number, but when you're this far behind, you want to solo ward as Tahm Kench. You know that G2's playing top side, so Mithy says, all right, I see Mickey on a ward. I won't be caught by Rakan. I'll be fine. And against some teams that play quite slow, I think that's fine. But because it's G2, you know that just because they're clearing wards with their support top side, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not also camping you bot side. It's the sort of thing that Origen would have found it very difficult to prepare for. It's just how aggressive, how on point G2 would be. Because it's not G2 from week 10, week 9, even week 8 of the LEC. This is the closer to the theoretical maximum of G2, and that's why it's so frightening that they're able to super hard force, and one face check play spills into everything else that happened. Like, if you remember, Tahm Kench died a while ago. And then Origen could have full disengaged, but just like Mithy, they were slightly too overeager. To no surprise at all, G2 take almost everything instantly. And then Wonder. Wonder's like, I want to go now! And that's a bit silly. That's very greedy by Wonder. And now all Origen can do, you know, obviously with a massive goal disadvantage, is run at Baron. That's all you can do here. You find a way to run at Baron. G2 are lazy in how they close this game. Like, it's definitely the sort of thing where when Grabs, their coach, comes back, he says, guys, you're trolling. And they're like, yeah, we were trolling. You notice the Baron damage here. It's really not a lot on the side of Origen. Like, eventually they're going to get it just purely because of numbers. But they need to do the Baron quick enough that they can get out with the Baron. And as you can see, that is a significant problem for them. This Baron still takes. This Baron's done in vision the entire time. It starts at 2402. Even though Jinx has 2 items, it's not 3-item Jinx. It's not really any Baron damage on a Swain or Lissandra. It takes 25 seconds to do the Baron, and we're early enough in the game that even though they start the Baron with 30-second death time, a 20-second death time, a 13-second death time on someone who doesn't have teleport, it takes so long at this point in the game for this comp that Wander gets there. Everyone gets there. Like, it still wasn't... It was still the right call, because otherwise they're never getting to Baron anyway, so you might as well try and get a Baron when you're this far behind. But it shows that G2 put themselves in a position where they could be pretty boneheaded about closing the game. They were trolling for sure. Like, there's no way they can actually finish the game there unless Origen just stay in base. But it's not, you know, Korean solo queue. They're not worried about their PC bang time. And then it just finishes from here. So that's the close of game number 3 between Origen and G2. The reason why I wanted to review game 2 and 3 is I find it very interesting, given that we're going to see Origen in another must-win best of 5. What are the mistakes they made in this series in order to evaluate them against Fnatic. And my take from Origen in this particular series is in game number 1, their Baron setups were at the right time, but they weren't perfect, and that ended up being the big reason they lost that game. And I know we empowered them to be more assertive in game number 2 and not to become more passive around it. And then in game number 2, they were actually overeager. They were definitely too focused on doing Rift Herald, and that actually pretty much solo lost them the game. So coming into game 3, and once again, you're getting unsettled because of your the level 1. Like the level 1s in game 2 and 3 was so big, and it's cool to see G2 in a best of 3 series where they can do that gamesmanship stuff, the creative stuff with their players to get under people's skin. Honestly, the biggest issue you see is that in game 3, it was a pretty sizable collapse, I would say. I thought around mid lane, they should have kind of taken advantage of Caps' 8-minute laning phase in different ways. There were ways they could have just tried to stuff it and roam, or they could have tried to play onto Caps. They chose neither. And then, one thing led to another and the game really ended. But the draft to me in game number 3 was the most concerning. I would actually prefer to see Origen consider some blue side games in their elimination match, because if you're left with GP Corki, and your last pick is, you choose it for top lane. That was the most likely place it was going to go. I think you need to prep Lissandra top if you're going to play Lissandra, and I think you need to be able to counterpick better than we saw. Like, Nukeduck is a god of counterpicks, right? But I feel like Alphari, in a scenario where he needs to beat GP, otherwise the Jinx lane loses and the Lissandra lane loses. You can't lose top lane as well. The Swain into GP, not a great lane matchup. It also errs towards team fighting, which they were going to find it hard to get to anyway. With Kennen and Vlad up, I think you have to be able to move on to a lane dominant champion there. And I think the Swain will help our team fight, was, I imagine, the call there. But the cost was, what did it cost? Everything was kind of the takeaway here. So I feel like Origen had, I think if they work on their, the way they play out objectives, and also kind of what they're looking for from a draft, because I never really felt like they got everything they wanted, even though game 1 was probably their cleanest draft. I think those are the things Origen need to work on. But I think back to how this series would have gone if that first Baron went down in game number 1, or some kind of needed adjustments in game number 2, and I think the series goes a different way. So I think changing the priority between Nukeduck and Alphari when it comes to choices, like earlier Kennens, for example, and finding a counterpick through Nukeduck, who's shown that he can really take it toe-to-toe with Caps, and just iterating on your neutral control, specifically around Rift Heralds. I think they need to find some different approaches to how they do that, whether it's new steps or updating and being willing to bait it and then turn off it. I feel like those are kind of the biggest things I see with Origen, but I think they're not that far away from being competitive against Fnatic. The issue I see with them is that I think Origen pride themselves as a prep team, and Fnatic are a very straightforward team, but I think Origen haven't shown they can play the style that beats Fnatic's style, which is to play multiple lanes and to try to really smash in the side lane on, say, Bwipo, for example, or get a big lead through your mid laner if Nemesis is looking to play a kind of defensive role. And I think they just end up fighting Fnatic at Fnatic's game, and I think Fnatic does it better with Reckless, specifically the duo lane. If you're going to go into late game fights, the role of the AD carrier is one of the most important in 5v5s, and I think the Reckless over Patrick situation makes it hard for Origen to overcome that. So I think Origen needs to do the thing that prep teams, you say the prep teams can do, but you never have proof of, which is go off, prep a new strategy to attack what you can almost pick Fnatic's draft, like, off the top of your head. Like, I feel like you can lead them to the draft you want, but can you beat them at that draft? I need to remain convinced. So I come away from this series not disappointed with Origen, but seeing their flaws pretty clearly. And that makes me think Fnatic over Origen, and I think G2 match up well against Fnatic. So in a best of 5, with both teams at their best, I think G2 win pretty reliably. All right, well, that's going to be my Game 3 and final of the Best of 5 VOD review of G2 versus Origen. I'm going to step away for a couple of moments. Then I'm going to answer some chat questions. So this is the end of the VOD review portion, so I completely understand if you're going to choose to close the stream now. I'm just going to play some ads, come back and thank everyone that subscribed and donated during the course of that game, and just chat with the fans a bit before I have to go. So thank you very much for watching my G2 versus Origen VOD review, and I'll be back very soon for a couple more questions.